Welcome back. Today we're looking at transcripts from Chaos, host of Chaotic Truth Live, specifically digging into his style, his intent, and how he handles, well, pretty sensitive stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to unpack there. What really jumps out is this gap between the goal, this idea of radical truth, and the actual methods used.
Exactly. Does the chaos serve the truth, or is it maybe the other way around?
Right. Is truth just a vehicle for the chaos? For the ego?
Let's dive into that first point then. While he's aiming for this radical truth, the persona, Chaos, often uses this extreme emotional detachment. Almost callous statements, really.
Especially around sensitive issues. It feels like a way to assert intellectual dominance, maybe?
I think so. And this detachment, it doesn't feel accidental. It feels weaponized.
Downside is it seems to sacrifice real engagement. It can alienate people because you're replacing empathy with
a kind of crude performance of being superior.
exactly. You see it so clearly in how he handles mental health, personal struggles.
That example with the guests talking about their friend's suicide pattern, giving away possessions, it was heavy.
Very. And then Chaos jumps in, completely shifts gears, asking about being touched or were you the toucher from some other story. It's jarring.
Totally jarring. It just hijacks the whole conversation, puts the spotlight back on him, using shock, rather than staying with the substance.
And it's not isolated. That same kind of performative callousness, like the advice to let them smoke crack for people trying to help addicts. While at the same time, he's positioning himself as a spiritual guide for someone like Linwood, who seems emotionally vulnerable.
It's a contradiction. If the goal is really guidance or truth, just using shock tactics all the time, it wears thin. It hurts credibility.
So, the suggestion, what's the fix there?
Well, the idea isn't to lose the edge entirely, but maybe introduce moments of, let's say, calculated intellectual curiosity before hitting them with the shock.
Okay.
The aim should be using discomfort to reveal a deeper truth, not just being cruel to shut someone down or puff up the ego.
But hang on. If he softens that approach, doesn't he risk losing the audience who came for that specific confrontational style, that shock value?
That's the balancing act. It's not about being soft. It's about calibration, purpose.
Right.
Okay, so give me an example, like with that story about the friend, the paranoia, the domestic violence, instead of the stereotype about white guys going postal.
Right. Instead of that, maybe reframe it. See the pattern he's highlighting, the asset distribution, the paranoia, but frame it as, say, a psychological effect of trauma he's observed.
So more analytical.
Yeah, something like, okay, you're highlighting this pattern of asset distribution and paranoia. How might focusing only on the behavior distract us from looking at systemic issues or solutions?
I see. Or with Linwood's high emotion. Instead of just reacting to it, maybe frame it like, I wonder, though, if we've considered how emotional responses like Linwood's are actually kind of essential fuel for the truth you deliver. If you strip that away, what's the point of the chaos?
Ah, okay. So it shifts the confrontation away from the person and onto the idea or the underlying issue.
Exactly. It strengthens the host's philosophical ground instead of just making it about ego.
Okay, so if emotional detachment is one piece, then the way he enforces it, his actual debating style, that seems like the next big hurdle.
Definitely. That style, it's marked by this aggressive one-upmanship, right? Trolling tactics that just derail logical arguments.
Yeah, it makes the intellectual message, if there is one, feel really unstable. It relies purely on his volume, his confidence.
We see this pattern consistently, using non sequiturs, personal insults, flat out denying things he clearly said.
Like the I didn't say that or I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. It feels like it's all about maintaining control over the conversation moment to moment rather than actually building a coherent point or thesis.
That refusal to let Ben land the plane is a perfect example, denying the guest the basic satisfaction of finishing a thought.
It's pure control. And when that's challenged, like on basic facts, his age, for instance, it escalates immediately. Personal insults, calling someone a bona fide liar or that awful monkey-ass face comment.
It's indefensible, really. And he almost admits it's intentional, doesn't he? Describing the show as a hodgepodge of comedy, drama, politics, race.
He does, which confirms the volatility is calculated, it's for entertainment. But that fundamentally clashes with his stated role as a truth speaker.
Especially when he'll say, I'm not trolling about this topic, just moments after, trolling something else.
The audience must start to think the message itself is just transactional, used only to win the moment, to dominate, and that makes the actual content just noise.
So structurally, what needs to change?
Well, the suggestion here is about clarity. Try to structure the dialogue to clearly signal when it's a trolling comedy segment where maybe that volatility is expected versus segments meant for serious analysis.
Make the distinction clearer.
Yes. And when pivoting to a serious point, explicitly let the guest finish a thought or directly address their premise. Otherwise, it just looks disingenuous.
Okay, and when he is challenged, instead of the insults?
Adapt a clarifying structure. Maintain the intellectual challenge, but frame it differently.
Like with the Tulsa example.
Exactly. Instead of just shutting down the point or insulting the person, try something like, okay, let's look closely at this Tulsa bombing discussion. Is the core argument here that black men were, quote, too weak and stupid, or is it about the aerial assault making defense impossible?
Ah, so you focus the interaction on clarifying the argument, the chaotic premise itself.
Right. It still fits the chaotic truth brand because you're dissecting a tough idea, but it avoids making it purely about ego, like the bend, do, land the plane stuff.
Which really just serves the host's dominance, not the truth.
Precisely. And this breakdown in logical cohesion, this reliance on dominance, it leads straight into the final and maybe the most critical area.
The contradictions and hypocrisy?
Yeah. Which really undermine the whole stated mission of truth.
Okay, so the issue is, despite positioning himself as this leader, fighting ignorance with chaotic truth, he often falls back on degrading stereotypes, and these deep internal contradictions just seem to fracture his own supposed ideological base.
It speaks volumes about that psychological need to provoke, doesn't it? Even attacking the very groups he claims to represent or speak for.
Absolutely. You see these profound contradictions, like degrading black womanhood, calling it inherently submissive. That line, "You are a woman, the only thing you see life from, a feminine submissive position." But then, in the next breath, he might champion someone like Jasmine Crockett as a dynamic sister who speaks truth, or expect black women to operate outside the very nature he just defined for them.
That inconsistency is just stark. It severely damages the platform's credibility.
And then there are the provocative claims, like saying Rosa Parks was a whole white woman or mocking institutions like the NAACP.
Right. Do those points genuinely serve the stated goal of liberation of African people worldwide?
It seems unlikely. It feels more like generating outrage, demonstrating how edgy he can be, showing intellectual one-upmanship.
It's shock without real significance. Easily refuted points that mainly seem to alienate the very community he claims to be leading.
And maybe the peak of that hypocrisy? Degrading the 60-year-old man the urban alchemy practitioner killed trying to help addicts.
Saying he wasted his life because he wasn't doing electrical work or some trade, but was doing community aid?
From someone who calls himself a spiritual guide? It's just, wow.
It shows this ego-driven cynicism that completely tanks any claim to wanting community upliftment. You can't be a spiritual guide and simultaneously champion selfishness and pure materialism over compassion.
So if the mission truly is chaotic truth, the philosophy itself needs internal consistency, right?
Absolutely. So the suggestion here is pretty fundamental. Clarify that philosophy. Focus the critical energy, the chaos, on the external enemy he identifies, whether that's empire, stupidity, ignorance, whatever it is.
Not using internal community degradation as the go-to rhetorical move. Focus outward.
Exactly. And if provocation is the core method, the angle needs to be original, significant, not just rehashing tired, easily debunked, or hypocritical tropes.
Okay, so give me a concrete example of shifting that focus, instead of the line about black women being an extension of the white man.
Right. Instead of that personal degradation, use the analysis to explore the structures. Ask, what specific political or economic systems might perpetuate a position some perceive as submissive, regardless of gender?
So it becomes a systemic critique, not personal attack.
Exactly. It allows for a critical observation without resorting to tearing down individuals within the group.
And addressing that contradiction about being a leader while dismissing community help, like the 60-year-old man.
Yeah. Instead of just saying he wasted his life, explore the complexity. A concrete approach would be to ask something like, is there a risk that focusing solely on internal division makes us overlook the deeper point here? That maybe systemic failures force people into these incredibly risky positions just to offer basic help.
Ah, that shows intellectual honesty. It engages with the tragedy rather than just using it for a cynical punchline. It serves the truth part, not just the chaos.
Right. It feeds the supposed mission, not just the host's dominance.
Okay, let's quickly recap then. We've hit 3 main opportunities for refining this material.
First, managing that weaponized emotional detachment. Make it calculated, philosophical, not just cruel for cruelty's sake.
Second, restructuring the debate style. Move away from pure transactional dominance towards maybe substantive intellectual provocation. Clearer segments could help there.
And finally, resolving the philosophical hypocrisy. Focus the critical energy outward on the stated enemies to actually uphold the mission of delivering radical truth, rather than undermining it with internal attacks and contradictions.
Yeah, implement those suggestions, especially aiming the chaos outward and allowing for moments of actual intellectual connection. That could really maximize the material's impact. Make the persona seem strong and purposeful, rather than just, well, insecure.
We definitely invite you to work on these points and submit the material back to us again for more feedback.
Thanks for tuning in to The Critique.